The Chinese government has instructed its carriers to halt the delivery of Boeing aircraft for now, and this includes related equipment and parts from US companies. The primary focus at the moment is the ongoing trade war between the US and China. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has suggested that a significant deal with China may be in the works, while President Donald Trump has doubled down on his hardline trade stance, asserting that no country, especially China, will be spared from his sweeping tariffs. The American economy has been undergoing such a turbulent period recently that some are calling it a new turning point. On one hand, major retail chains are repeatedly cancelling large orders from China, and on the other, a backlog of containers at Chinese ports is threatening the flow of global trade. As trade tensions between the US and China intensify, many are wondering if new tariffs and logistical costs are driving supply chains down an irreversible path. Reports from American media in recent weeks indicate that many major Chinese importers are cancelling orders. Leading e-commerce platforms and large retail companies in the US are allegedly facing a severe contraction in Chinese products. Some economists are concerned that this surge could create a major gap in the supply chain, with a significant number of containers held at Chinese ports no longer being loaded or even being withdrawn. The scale of cancelled orders is so large that even the shipping industry is feeling the effects of the recession. The question arises, why is the US suddenly cancelling such a high volume of orders? Is it primarily due to high tariffs? Or is there another reason? According to leaks from official sources, the newly announced additional tariffs are driving import costs to extraordinary heights. The US administration's plans to impose much higher tariffs on certain products, particularly in the defense and strategic technology sectors, are causing concern among companies working with Chinese manufacturers. These tariffs could apply to a wide range of products, from electronic components to pharmaceutical raw materials, and even consumer electronics. At a time when inflationary pressures are rising in the US, the higher costs of imported goods are naturally squeezing retailers' profit margins. Large companies may want to avoid passing these additional costs onto consumers or risk selling at a loss. How are Chinese manufacturers responding? According to social media posts, many factories in China are now saying no to discounts, as US buyers try to lower the price of their pre-ordered products or demand additional benefits. Some reports suggest that Chinese suppliers are not backing down, asserting that a significant portion of exports has already declined and they need to preserve their costs. Manufacturers have long been complaining about rising raw material prices and labor costs. This crisis could have devastating consequences for both sides. According to American media, the piling up of containers at ports could create a major bottleneck in global logistics. Already, some of the largest US retail chains are cutting back on their Chinese sourcing and seeking alternatives. Some official sources report that companies are trying to lower tariffs by shifting sourcing to Southeast Asian countries or other regions. In other words, US retailers may be acting on the logic that costs have risen too much due to Chinese tariffs and are now seeking cheaper alternatives. This recent trend of withdrawing supply chains highlights this issue. Some suggest these moves could mark a new chapter for the global economy, while others believe they are just a temporary fluctuation. But is it really temporary? Some trade sources predict that these changes could last for a long time, especially with new US tax and tariff policies potentially becoming permanent. These protectionist policies are aimed at boosting the competitiveness of American producers in the domestic market. However, for this to succeed, both retailers and large e-commerce platforms must opt for more expensive, domestically made products. This transition is not easy. China remains the world's manufacturing hub, with massive production volumes across many categories. Millions of products, from electronics to textiles, are made in China, offering a price advantage over other countries. However, when tariffs partially destroy this advantage, it disrupts the market balance. While some businesses are seeking new markets with cheaper labor, giant shipping companies are also suffering from the uncertainty, as unfulfilled or cancelled orders put them in a difficult position. According to some reports, the backlog of empty containers at ports is leading to rapid challenges for the shipping industry. Freight prices are declining, while port operators are beginning to face losses. On the other hand, consumers may experience price fluctuations, particularly in categories like electronics, clothing, and household goods. Tariff pressures and supply chain shifts. If a retailer decides to leave China and move to a more expensive country, they will eventually pass the cost increase onto the consumer. As prices rise, demand decreases, and as demand drops, the supply chain becomes further constrained, creating a vicious cycle. This cycle is also impacting Amazon and similar online shopping giants. In the past, Chinese sellers dominated a significant portion of the Amazon platform, with their affordable products driving high sales volumes, which benefited Amazon's profits. However, with the rise of tariffs, some China-based sellers may choose to increase prices or exit the market altogether. According to reports circulating on social media, some small and medium-sized sellers are informing US customers saying, "Sorry, we are revising our prices due to increased taxes." Others are announcing their exit from the US market. This could reduce Amazon's product diversity and its competitive edge. With less competition, prices could rise, leading to consumers paying more. Meanwhile, Chinese suppliers are looking for ways to mitigate their losses. There are rumors that some companies are attempting semi-legal or outright illegal methods to reduce the additional tax burden. Allegedly, they are underreporting the value of exports to minimize customs duties. These methods could lead to heavy penalties and reputational damage if caught. Still, some desperate suppliers see these workarounds as their only option. There are also reports that US customs authorities are cracking down on fraudulent attempts, with various inspection mechanisms being put in place. Could this escalate tensions between the two countries? Impact on US consumers and inflation. The White House has emphasized the goal of strengthening domestic production, which has been a long-standing policy. For years, American companies have relied on cheap manufacturing from abroad, especially China. The press secretary mentioned that this strategic shift would take time, signaling that it would be a long-term plan. This transformation may disrupt industries such as technology, automotive, textiles, and pharmaceuticals, which depend on China in various ways. There are speculations that the US government is planning to introduce new tariffs, particularly on computer chips and pharmaceutical raw materials. If this happens, the trade war with China could intensify. American companies are struggling with rising tariffs and logistics costs, as well as inflationary pressures and declining consumer confidence in the aftermath of the pandemic. If these companies raise their prices in response, sales may decline and profits could diminish. On the other hand, if they absorb the costs, profit margins will shrink due to higher inventory and tax expenses. This presents a real dilemma for these companies. This dilemma may explain claims that the US is cancelling large-scale orders early. By cancelling orders in advance, companies seem to be adopting a wait-and-see approach. Until the new taxes come into effect, Chinese companies are closely monitoring these cancellations, with some social media accounts sharing images of containers stacked up in Chinese ports. Some containers are empty, but most contain shipments of cancelled orders with no destination. If this trend continues, China's export revenues could fall significantly, potentially slowing down its economy. The US and China have long been giants in global trade, so any disruption between them would have a ripple effect on the global economy. Other regions, like Europe, Asia, and even Africa, could be impacted either directly or indirectly. Given the interconnectedness of the global supply chain, China's perspective and no-discount policy, this issue isn't just affecting retail and e-commerce companies. The automotive sector, the construction industry, and even tech giants are feeling the impact. In particular, semiconductor chip manufacturers are waiting for the US government to announce new tariffs, leading to delays and revisions in supply agreements. If the US raises tariffs on chips and other high-tech products, prices for products like smartphones and computers could rise sharply. Some experts believe that this could increase demand for older devices, as consumers might opt not to buy new models. This could lead to an unpredictable recession in the tech sector. Both countries hold significant leverage. China has the ability to influence global markets due to its export strength, while the US controls the large consumer market. Both sides are watching for signs of retreat or negotiation. Experts predict that as the back and forth over tariffs continues, large-scale order cancellations and congestion in ports may become more common.